Okay, good afternoon. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. This will be a virtual public hearing, and participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by their computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Here in Etobicoke, York, we actually have one member participating by video, Danny Bellissimo today, and we have in person Sophia Reddick, who's just not here right now, on my left, and on my right, Mr. Robert Taylor. My name is Michael Clark, and I'm your chair. Donald Taylor, sorry. Done that before. So any registered participants will be participating only by audio, and we ask that you mute your devices until you're called on to speak. Land acknowledgements. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is now called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone who wishes to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB, in the event of an appeal, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or in some limited circumstances to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedure will be as follows. I will call each item in the order listed on the agenda. We go in order, unlike in the non-virtual world where we vet the agenda. Here we just start at number 21, and today we go out to number 35 or 36. When an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if required. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. Mr. Taylor, who is watching the clock, will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark, and we'll ask you to wrap up. When addressing the committee, please start off by stating your name and address clearly for the record, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent goes first on a contested application and makes a presentation to the committee. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee in such event may decide to defer the application if it's being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Once the applicant has presented their application, then individuals either in support or opposed to the application, usually opposed, will be invited to speak. Committee members, again, they each have 5 minutes to speak, and committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the speakers, not to present new evidence, but only to respond to issues and concern raised by the neighbors. That will then mark the end of the discussion on the matter, and the application is then taken into committee for a decision. Are there any declarations of interest of panel and staff to declare on the afternoon agenda items? None to declare? Okay. Deferral requests. I believe I understand item number 21, our first item that we would be dealing with this afternoon, 5 Alderton Court. And we have several speakers, and we've received quite a number of letters on that application. That application has to be deferred because variances 2 and 3 are incorrect. They were transposed, so the variances are incorrect and have to be recirculated for there to be proper notice. Mr. Flynn is I believe, the agent on 5 Alderton Court. Mr. Flynn, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and we also have 2 neighbors registered from 9 Alderton Court and from 17 Hartfield Road. Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Flynn.
Good day, sir. How are you?
Okay, as we stated at the outset, unfortunately, it looks like this matter has to be deferred.
Yes. Staff have informed me of it.
Okay, and perhaps, yes, some of the people commenting who wrote in were complaining that they got late notice and only had 1 business day to prepare for this prior to the submission deadline. And perhaps you can use that opportunity of the deferral to perhaps try to contact the neighbors in opposition, try to come to some resolution or narrowing of the issues. So perhaps we should check in with the other people who've registered just to make sure they're here and know what's has to occur on this. Is Lynn Corbeck there at 9 Alderton?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so this matter is going to have to be deferred, as I stated, because there's a notification issue and that variances 2 and 3 have been mixed up, and the variance on 2 should be 3 and vice versa. So we are unable to proceed today. So what's going to happen is the matter is going to be deferred, and there's going to have to be re-notification. I've just told Mr. Flynn that, you know, he can perhaps use the time to review the letters of opposition and perhaps see if you know, perhaps he wants to do some changes, because I believe we also have a comment from community planning that it be built substantially in accordance with the site plan. But so I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that, and unfortunately it's going to have to be deferred, but you will be re-notified, and this matter will be up here again, and you'll have a chance to participate at that time.
Thank you.
Okay. Yuhan Lar at 17 Hartfield?
Yes, hi there.
Same thing. This matter is going to have to be, I just want to make sure you're aware that this matter has to be deferred to correct the variances.
Yes, thank you very much for that update. And I'd just like to state that if Mr. Flynn is still listening, we'd be happy to have a conversation with him and probably with the other neighbors to see if we could resolve this prior to the next COA. Okay,
so perhaps Mr. Flynn can be in contact with the neighbors. He has your letters, and if he needs to get in touch, he can get, I see we have email addresses and phone numbers. I'm not sure we're allowed to release that, certainly not in the hearing, but if Mr. Flynn needs to get in touch with you, he can do so through staff if he doesn't already have your contact information.
Yes, I will contact him, and potentially we could have a meeting of the objectors.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee members, so we need a motion, unfortunately, to defer this matter to correct the notice.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this item on the condition that the applicant meet with the neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. And also for the main reason is for proper notice, to correct the mistakes in the notice.
Yes, that's the reason for the deferral, because of, as you said, the improper notice.
Thank you. Seconder for Mr. Bellissimo's motion.
Abstaining.
Ms. Reddick, all in favor? Okay, the matter is adjourned. We'll see you back here again, Mr. Flynn.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, our next application is item number 22, 13 Woodbury Place. And It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage, and there are 5 variances. And on this application, we have urban forestry is, we have 5 variances. Planning would like it to be built substantially in accordance with the site plan in the event of approval. And we have 3 letters of opposition, and we have petition and support, and we have Councillor Grimes indicating that indicate approval. He's in support of the application, and so he's in support. And we have registered to speak on this application the owner, Brett Kelly, as well as Diane and Stephen Gauthier from 37 West Lee Crescent. So, Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Can you please give us a short presentation here on your application? You're looking to build a new home.
Yes.
And you have 5 variances. Did you speak to the neighbors? It looks like we have a couple of neighbors who've written in with concerns.
Yes. Yeah. I have. I went and spoke with the neighbors and directly addressed their concerns, and I understand their side of it. But if I could get started here, I'll sort of give you a little background to why we're doing this.
Yeah, they seem to be talking about flooding, or they're thinking that the extra built form is going to result in flooding of their property.
Yes, exactly. Okay, well, good afternoon, committee. My name is Brent Kelly, and on behalf of my mom and my girlfriend, I'd like to extend our appreciation for you taking the time to discuss our proposed renovations. I've been fortunate enough to call 13 Woodbury Place home my entire life, and we're here to discuss laying the literal foundation to the next chapter of our lives. Part of keeping this family together was that we planned to build a separate basement apartment for my mom to comfortably age in place. After all, it's the least I can do after she raised me as a single mother. We've been active members of our community for decades, and that's why we've taken careful consideration in all aspects of designing our home. This includes having meaningful consultations with our neighbors and our city councilor and city staff, along with stakeholders, to make sure that we've got this right, and I believe we have. We have taken the necessary steps to address the concerns voiced by our neighbors, and I want to assure you that we will continue to work with them going forward, because that's what good neighbors do. I look forward to answering your questions and hope we can secure your approval for building our dream home that involves very little impact on the surrounding properties with minor variances.
Yeah, I see you don't have any coverage issues or FSI variants.
No,
on this. I also noticed I was looking, the most substantive letter is the 3rd letter we have here. It's from someone named Carol Limoges, but I don't believe we have an address, and she does say, so I'm just wondering if staff has, just for the members' benefit, to see, because she's writing on it affects her personally. Talking about, so we have this letter from 2-page letter from Carol Limoges, but I don't see.
have 3 addresses, 35, 37, and 39 Wesley Crescent. Yeah, Carol Limoges is 39 Wesley.
Oh, she's 39. Okay. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, sir, thank you for that presentation. Let's hear from, we have one registered neighbor, either Diane or Stephen, not both, Gauthier at 37 Wesley. So who's on the line?
Diane, hello, can you hear us? Diane, are you there? Yeah. Hello, Diane, can you hear us? I can hear a little bit of background noise. Mr. Chair, we were unable to do a sound check with Diane.
Yeah, I see they wrote in a letter in any event. The backyard setback and length. They lived for 37 years, and they have annual flooding at the rear of their property. Lots in Wesley are lower, 1.5 to 2 feet, and many of our neighbors have recurring basement flooding issues. As I said, says an acre slopes towards the Etobicoke Creek ravine, which is across the street. Unfortunate flooding stays in the rear yard. Concern for the potential of water moving closer. So that's, as I indicated, that was mainly the concern, was the increased footprint. But I see there isn't even a coverage or FSI variance here. In any event, okay, so we can reach them. So we do have their letter. We have the other two letters. Committee members, I guess you can't ask questions of Diane or Stephen Gauthier or the other people who've written in, but we do have the applicant here. So if any questions, or if we're looking for a motion, we also do have the counselor in support. And planning, just want to say condition be substantially, event is approved with the site plan date stamped August 20th. And I'm not sure, is there an urban forestry condition on this? I don't have my list. So if you can check.
No,
for
there
that.
isn't.
No, okay.
Question of the applicant?
Go ahead, Danny.
Could the applicant hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
As an architect, I find this design extremely sensitive and carefully planned in the site. I respect what you've done in terms of putting the addition at the back so as to not impact on the street. And I believe it does not impact that greatly on the neighbors. So I congratulate you for the design, and the sketches, by the way, they're very clear. Thank you.
Okay, so it's not a
Thank you.
question. You just had a positive comment.
I just have an observation.
Okay, do you want to make a motion then?
I think they're clear. I think the question, there's no question because the drawings are very clear.
Okay, so
Very
do you
well
want to make a
done.
motion then?
I'd like to make a motion for approval of the variances. I find that they're minor in nature and respects the character of the street.
Okay, and that's subject to the staff condition, but substantially in accordance with the site plan.
Yes, it's subject to the planning staff condition that it be substantial in accordance to the plan.
Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Second to
Second.
Mr. Bellissimo's motion. Sophia Roddick, thank you. All in favor? You have your approval unanimously. Thank you. Best of luck with your home that you and your new build, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next application is item number 2325 Eagle Road. And this is for a second-story front balcony, a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, and a second-story rear platform. And there are 4 variances. We have a covering letter, a contextual plan. Planning is recommending that variance number 3 be refused, the exterior main wall height. And we have comments from 38 and 36 Garden Valley. Okay. A tree declaration, and we have 2 letters of opposition. Okay, registered to speak on this application is Eduardo Antonio Ortiz, the owner, and as well as I mentioned, the neighbors at 36 and 38, who's also representing the neighbor at 40. Is Mr. Ortiz there, please?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, Mr.
Sure.
Ortiz. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Okay, so first of all, you've seen the staff recommendation. We
I
have your
have,
covering
yes.
letter. We have your contextual plan. Planning is not in favor of your one of your variances, the proposed front and rear exterior main wall heights. And we have letters of opposition. So would you like to give us a brief presentation of what you want to do here? And then we'll go over to the, we'll hear from the neighbor. 38.
Yes, I would love to. Myself, my wife, and my 2 kids planning to renovate our home.
Mhm.
We've decided to do a second-story addition, working with the existing footprint, been working with planning staff for quite a bit of time to try to get something that fits our needs and also works within their recommendations. We were very, very eager to make sure we had full support from planning on this. And we got to that point. And then, so we had a report from staff on the initial design with full support. Then COVID hit, and my wife and I found ourselves working from home a lot, and felt that we had the need to design our office space within the house, within the new design, the new proposal, rather than it being in an internal room. We wanted it to be fronting the street, and we felt that also accommodated some other challenges that we were having with the design of the house, addressing the street. So we went back to planning with a small adjustment. We thought it was a small adjustment just to redesign the portion above the garage. But they viewed it as being problematic, despite the fact that they had already supported us on the wall height that we had previously submitted. Due to technical circumstances, we need the slope that we're asking for in order for proper rain and snow drainage. And we tried to work with them, but we couldn't really accommodate. The last conversations that we had, they were asking for that we reduce the wall height to 7.95 meters. The best we could do was 8.43. So there was a difference of 0.48 meters. And which is the reason why they're not giving us their full support. It's over a point, less than half a meter portion of sloping wall at the front, which
Well, hold on.
fully
You're
slopes down to 7 meters.
saying they were willing to give you 8.43?
They were willing to give me 7.95.
I see.
And I'm at 8.43. And I went back to my roofing contractor, my engineers, and they're telling me that for a proper slope, that I would need at least 11%, which is what I'm showing right now, an 11% slope from front to back, and that if I went to the 7.95, which didn't seem like a lot, it says 0.48 meters, but that was creating extra expenses, or I lowered the headroom at the room at the back. But the 8.43 was critical for technical purposes. I would have willingly reduced it to 7.95 if I could have. I had demonstrated that I was willing to work with them on everything else that they recommended before.
Yep.
So that's where we ended up, and it's the reason why I have the report that I have from planning.
Okay, but Mr. Ortiz, they're saying, hold on, let me look, because it's the requirement is 7, not 7.95. I'm trying to see if in here they said they were willing to give you 7.95, because they just say to refuse it. Don't they just say that? It says recommend variance 3 be refused at 9.2. It doesn't say to reduce it to 7.95 or 8.43, or it just says refuse it. So you're telling me,
and this is the background. I have emails within planning staff where we went back and they offered 7.95 as it's not in the official report, but it's in communications with them. They were practically saying that they liked, the first design that I had, which I felt, that I with all due respect, I appreciated the fact that they were more supportive of the original submission, but at the end of the day, I still need to do something that addresses my needs, and I, within the context of what if I can, you've seen the material, but I would like to share just that contextual image because I think it tells the story, if I may. I don't know if I'm allowed to share content.
Let me just read. I'm just looking here. It says here, just as relevant, it talks about that you made changes and summarize all the changes you made, the lot coverage, the floor space index, the second floor balcony. The run at the front was unchanged, and the rear exterior and wall heights were changed. But then it goes on to say the increased height. It says the previous plan showed as a reference, a variance for front and rear exterior main hall wall heights of 9.2 only at the center of the roof line, while the remaining roof sloped downwards. This increased height was deemed acceptable as it was required only for a small portion of the roof. It says this revised
Correct.
roof plan proposes a roof that has been designed that is wider, which both increases the size of the building and is no longer limited to a minor design aesthetic. So that's the explanation. So I think just for the committee members' benefit as well to see how we came here. You made certain changes. Previous design, the 9.2 was fine because it was only for a very small portion at the center of the roof line, and the remaining sloped downwards. But now that isn't the case. So that's what I was trying to explain and try to understand why you're saying 7.95 and 8.43, and you're at 9.2. So I just wanted to sort of understand.
Right.
Okay, so now I think we know the situation.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, I got.
So you're saying why did you make those changes again? Because you were, first of all, to make the other changes they were asking for, but why did the roof line change?
The roof line changed because I had a desire. Originally, I had a laundry and a bathroom over the garage, which really allowed me to do a sloping roof down to the south. And then when I had the desire to put my office above the garage, then I needed to have more natural light, and I reversed the slope of the roof. So it was over the change over my home office above the garage.
Right. Okay. Okay, now I understand what you're doing. So let's now hear, we have the neighbors at 36 Gardenvale and 38 and 40 Gardenvale being represented by 38, and they're right behind. So let's first hear from Ranjit Karna of 36 Gardenvale. You'll have a chance to respond to their concerns, sir, so we'll come back to you. Yes.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Is that Ranjit Karna?
Yes, I am. Sorry, didn't specify that. Ranjit Karna.
Yes. Can you let us know what your concerns are, sir?
So my concern, or our concern, is with the item 4, and that is for the east elevation. The proposed second story front and rear balconies seem to be the requested is twice the size of recommended 4 meters square, or 4 square meters, and it's twice the size. And our concern, of course, is with the east elevation and the rear balcony.
Yes.
And I think it presents twofold concern. The first concern, of course, is that the size and the glass window, or it covers almost the entire width of the balcony, and almost the length of the wall. It almost seems like it's not a window, it's like a little wall, glass wall, if I may add. And that will present a privacy problem because our lot sizes are not particularly large. The streets are not that, in this particular neighborhood, I'm sure you're familiar with that. The streets are narrow, or they're not wide enough, or like the other neighborhoods, and lots are modest sizes. So, and with that huge glass window, certainly have a privacy problem.
So you're concerned with the second floor terrace at the rear?
Yes, indeed.
Which is 10 meters.
And a point may be made that perhaps the owner will also have that same privacy problem, but I'd like to point out that they have a loft in their design.
Yep.
There is a loft which will actually prevent all the viewing from the others. So they have a lesser of an issue for privacy than rest of the other neighbors do. And I also feel that with the huge balcony and the huge glass covering, it will, and with this was to a precedence may be set because because of the lot sizes and the width of the streets in this neighborhood, it might present a problem in the future for others as well.
Okay, so I
So
see the
these are the
terrace
only
here.
concerns I have, and thank you for taking my comments.
Right, so you're talking, just want to clarify, the terrace, the 10-meter terrace off of the loft on the second floor, which is sort of adjacent to the loft and the master bedroom.
Yes.
It's sort of inset. It's that kind of, it doesn't stick out from the master bedroom. It's sort of set in the building, but it's off that loft. So perhaps the applicant can explain why that is. I guess he's filling in the void, and it's 10 meters and not 4 meters. I assume it's not going to be meant for parties because it's off a bedroom, although it is off this loft. I don't know what the use of the loft is. If it's sort of a common area, then you could have a gathering of people as opposed to it being off a bedroom when it's just for maybe to go out just for the one or two people in the bedroom who to use. This is off a common space called a loft. Okay, thank you, sir.
Sorry,
Committee members
Mr.
have any questions for Mr. Carna before we move on to the next speaker?
I just want to let the chair know that the plans in this package are not the most up-to-date plans. I think they're the original plans because the concept plan doesn't match. So we're just going to share that on the screen
Okay.
so the members can see the accurate plans that were not included in your package.
Okay, and in the meantime, we can hear from Edward Schatz, 38, who's also representing, it says here, the neighbors at number 40. Mr.
Great.
Schatz?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Loud and clear.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for hearing my comments. My wife sent in a letter also from 38 Gardenville Road, so I'll sort of be summarizing some of the things that she offered. And I think the committee might have in front of them another letter from Keith Rout at 40 Gardenville Road. I wonder if you could confirm that.
Nope. Just from 36 and 38, your wife's letter.
Okay. Okay. I spoke to the somebody representing the committee, the person who organized sent me the webinar links, and he said that I could speak that on behalf of Keith Rout at 40 Gardenville Road. So I'll also summarize what Keith has to say. Essentially, Ranjit, I think, offered a pretty good capsule summary of the common concerns across the three different neighbors in the back, right? So immediately to the south, southeast, immediately to the east. Well, and then actually two properties to the southeast and one to the immediate east. And the concern is about this combination of the balcony, which seems to my eyes and to the other neighbors to be quite oversized, and the loft, which I'm hearing the owner describe, his desire to create an office for his family in our strange times that we're living in, and that's understandable. But it does generate a huge privacy concern. So I think Ranjit's description is exactly right, and the privacy concern is, I think, actually exacerbated in our times where we're all spending a lot more time at home. And so I would add that to the list of considerations. We've got 3 kids, and one is off at university, but half back at home. And we spend, there's 5 of us in our home, and we spend a ton of time in the backyard, which would be, quite visible from the loft and from the balcony. So we have concerns about what that would do to our quality of life, not to mention property values and so on. So I think that Ron's concerns about privacy on that variance number 4 is echoed across the board. Let me just briefly read, since I don't have a ton of time, Keith Rout's letter, which was sent just after the deadline. So he asked me to represent him here. My name is Keith Rout. I'm a resident at 40 Gardenville Road, writing with regard to 25 Eagle Road in Etobicoke. I have some concerns with the variances requested. C of A is is for minor variances, and my general concern is that these requested variances are more than minor. However, I have two concerns of high importance to me, and they are as follows in order of importance. First, variance 4, the proposed terrace at the east rear side creates a large privacy concern. It is nearly triple that which is allowed, and the size will allow for larger social gatherings, which will tower over our properties. I would prefer the design stick to the allowable 4 meters square. I would not object to a terrace on the front side of the house where the likelihood of a privacy issue is considerably less to the surrounding properties. Keith goes on to say variance 3, with the amount of trees in the neighborhood, sunlight is at a premium. In saying this, if the overall proposed height of the front and rear walls affects the amount of sunlight I would receive on my property in the afternoon, I would not be in favor of this. So Keith adds the sunlight concern. From our perspective, the major concern is the privacy one. And then, of course, you heard what Ranjit had to offer. So I feel like this is a pretty, there's a lot of common concern across the east side of this property. And I'm grateful for the committee for hearing us.
Thank you, sir. The drawing we have is in our package. We had both the west and east elevations. So that structure on the left-hand side, that's looks like a greenhouse type, all windows. That's, I guess, that's incorporates both the loft and behind, and then the terrace in front of that.
Well, I just have a question for the applicant, because the elevation that's on the screen right now was submitted on September 21st, which is not what was mailed to the neighbors and included in the package. If we look at the elevation that's in the members' package, it's these 3 narrow windows above the garage. And that's what the variances are based on. So the applicant referred to making changes to the proposal based on a home office, but that doesn't have a zoning review attached, and I don't know if there are additional variances associated with those modified plans.
Okay, so the plan we have now showing, but the one up on that you had up on the screen was showing as the proposed. Is there a date on it?
Yes.
Neighbors, it says April 2020.
If I may speak,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Yes, so the elevation that was shown previously was the front elevation. It was not the correct elevation in there. And the plans were uploaded because I did make sure that I went back to see that they were online uploaded, and those are the ones that we have on the screen are the ones upon the review the planning staff report is based upon. This is the front elevation facing Eagle Road. I believe the elevation of concern is the east elevation.
I know, but the set of plans is completely different than what was in our file when we mailed the notice. This plan that's on the screen right now was submitted after the notice was mailed and has a completely different elevation.
I cannot speak to that because my plans were submitted back in August. So I checked online, and what it's online is what I submitted. So on the mail piece that I received, there was only a site plan. I did not receive the elevations on the mail piece, just the site plan.
Right, and the date on that site plan is July 28th, right?
Right.
Which is different.
I cannot speak to what was mailed. I can only speak to what I submitted.
Yeah. I see you sent in a letter dated September the 15th. So are there new plans with that one or no? And that's when you talk about the, that the this is where you say you're only a small portion is above in terms of the height of the.
Correct. What you have on the screen right now, it's correct.
Yeah, because what about the issue, the comment, can you do that without the, oh, hold on, there's a drawing attached to that letter. A rendering. But the rendering is at the front. Right? You see what
yes,
right
that was just additional material.
So that's what it is at the front. It sort of looks like the one at the.
This is the front, correct.
So that's the front that we're looking at on the screen now, correct?
Correct.
So where's the rear elevation?
If you scroll down, whoever's controlling, that's the rear
Yeah,
elevation.
okay. So where's the rear terrace on the second floor? It's hard to see. It's
Left-hand side.
Left-hand side there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we heard from the neighbors. You've responded. Let's take it into committee for follow-up questions and see if anyone's ready to make a motion.
Can I ask?
We have the planning
question?
condition. You know, we have the planning wanting to refuse the height. The applicant mentioned something they were prepared to give them 7.95 or 8.43 as opposed to the 9.2. So I'm wondering if that gets refused, what can happen anyway? We have the issue of the rear deck off of the loft area that's oversized. Those seem to be the concerns. So, Mr. Bellissimo, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have concerns, completely confused. As people receive drawings and receive notification, it seems that there's been a bit of a mix-up here. And I feel really concerned about approving anything because the drawings are not really representative of what people have seen and what we are seeing. What I'm seeing here is not at all what was shown on the screen. So I view... Is that correct? Because I view a building by drawings, not just by variances. So I have a problem with advancing this proposal. I would think that maybe it's time to go back to the community again and the applicant meet with the residents and see if they can work something out.
Well, I think we have too many.
So I don't know if that's possible.
Unless you want to make a motion to refuse the application. We have the issue with the overlook and the, you know, this is the application that's before us. We can't just defer everything to see if they can work it out and come back. If community planning is not, if from our memo, they want us to refuse the wall height, and there's the issue of the rear deck. So
maybe then I can just ask a question of staff. Do we know if planning seen the proposal that was before us or the proposal that was on the screen? Do you know that, Madam Chair?
The memo is dated September 28th. They don't refer in their memo to which set of plans they reviewed, but it's based on the higher height.
Right. No, I understand the variances is heights. I just haven't, I would not make a motion either way because I just can't look at a proposal where the drawings are confusing and the elevations and even the cross sections.
I agree. I've asked staff for an answer and I haven't received a response.
So I will let another member weigh in on this.
anyway, someone prepared to make a motion?
I would like to get an opportunity to respond.
Sorry,
if
sir,
I can.
we're in committee now. Only if someone asks you a question, you can weigh in. Otherwise, we're in committee now. So.
I'm prepared to make a motion to refuse this application. I'm concerned that it's not consistent with the principles of the four tests. Specifically, I don't feel that it's consistent with the existing physical character of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Ms. Ruddick. Seconder for that motion? Mr. Taylor, all in favor? The application is unanimously refused. Thank you, neighbors. Thank you, applicant. And we have to move on to the next application. So the matter is refused. Item number 24 is our next application, 118 TAYSHAM Crescent. And this is for a detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 4 variances. We have urban forestry and ravines with comments. And that is all I think planning has written in that they're okay with it. Planning email. It just says it's ready to be scheduled. Okay.
I believe there's a forestry condition.
Yeah, there's forestry and ravines.
Okay.
Registered to speak on this matter is Laxman Patel. Who's the applicant?
Yeah, I'm Lakshman Patel.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we have your application. We note the variances. I've just summarized what we have before us. There are basically 4 variances. Height, 1 meter of height, 0.5 meter of soffit height. And the platform is 5 meters instead of
4 meters.
4 meters, correct. And the floor space index 0.53 instead of 0.45. No comments from neighbors. So let's just see if we have any anyone has any questions, or if one of the members is ready to make a motion. Subject to forestry and ravines. Any questions for Mr. Patel?
No, we don't have any question.
I'm asking the members if they have questions for you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I have a question, sir. Are you aware of the forestry conditions for the submission of applications for permits to injure or remove a city-owned tree and privately owned trees?
I just came to know very lately, last week only.
So you are aware then?
Yeah, I'm aware about it.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Chair, I'm satisfied that the application meets the 4 tests under the Planning Act and move for approval subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Okay. There's nothing from ravines. There's no ravine condition, correct?
Ravine seems to be forestry.
Okay. Okay, seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Donald Taylor, not Ronald, not Robert.
Did you get the second?
So if you're ready, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Patel. You have approval.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Our next application is item number 25, 27 ASHMOUNT Crescent. It's an application for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 3 letters of opposition. We have a covering letter and 18 support letters. We have a tree preservation plan, and planning is requesting as a condition of approval that it be built in the event of approval, substantially in accordance with the south side elevation dated September the 8th, I think. And we do have the opposition letters. Yes, September the 8th is the date of the south side elevation. And we have registered to speak on this Joel Gilbert Anderson, the agent, and the neighbor at 29 ASHMOUNT Crescent right next door, Mr. Vignali. So, Mr. Anderson.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair and Committee. I'm Joel Anderson, representing the applicant.
Okay. So you're aware we have some opposition letters, and we do have one person here. You'd like to give us a brief presentation. I assume you're okay with the planning condition?
Yeah, we're okay. We're okay with the planning condition, but the variance specifically that condition was imposed because of has caused a little bit of confusion because it's not actually required of our application. If you look at the original application to Committee of Adjustment and the original zoning review that was attached to that, the design didn't change. However, that variance appeared. We confirmed this with the zoning examiner, and we've also asked if we can withdraw that specific variance. But that being said, we're okay with the condition.
Okay, so you don't want it, there's no variances to be taken. Which variance are you talking about here? The
So variance number 7, which refers to the main wall height of the side wall. And the reason that it's not required is because that specific variance is, or that specific bylaw deals with pairs of main walls. So we are seeking approval for variances 5 and 6, which deal with the front and rear main walls, but not for the side wall.
So variance number 7, which says you have 10 meters facing a side lot line, and whereas it's 7. So do you need that variance, or are you saying that variance is a mistake, or what are you saying? Or
Yeah, we don't need
have it, and we have
do
the
not need
condition.
that.
So you're
We're happy to have the condition, but we don't need the variance.
so you will put the condition in to tie it to the east side elevation, but you don't need variance 7, is what you're saying. That so that is withdrawn.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so I assume you've had a chance to read the opposition letters. I don't know if you want to respond now to what they mention, or let's hear first from the one opposition party who is appearing here over the phone, or in person to make their presentation, and then you can respond to them all together. We do have the letter. One of those three letters is from the speaker. Letter dated September 25th. From Hugo and Judy Vignali, and Mr. Vignali, I believe, is with us to make a presentation here.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, my presentation is the same as the letters I wrote, but the actual number 7 that the previous Mr. Anderson was talking about. Yep. It's still, as far as I know, is still 40% above the guidelines. So being on the south side and on the lot line, we have a privacy issue there, and we also.
I think Mr. Anderson was pointing out that in fact that variance is not necessary. In fact, variances 5 and 6 deal with that situation. He can correct me if I'm wrong. But he's suggesting that we remove variance number 7, because it's not accurate, and in fact, the front exterior main wall and the rear exterior main wall heights are as reflected in 5 and 6, which is just slightly over the 7 meter at 7.29 and 7.43. But he's saying he does not need the variance number 7, which talks about 10 meters. So in fact, he's at 7.43 and 7.29, which are pretty close to the 7 meter requirement maximum.
So what you're saying is they redesigned the wall?
What he's saying is that the side walls are covered off in 5 and 6, but not 7. 7 is in error. Is that correct, Mr. Anderson? I guess Mr. Anderson's been muted, or?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. So that's correct. We don't require variance 7, only 5 and 6. The height variance that we're asking for is quite minor, with only 0.5 meters at the very tip of the roof.
Right. Okay. So, Mr. Vignali, we have your letter about your other concerns, but your one on variance 7 is kind of redundant because it's no longer being needed. He's not at 10 meters. He's at 7.43 and 7.29. So your other concerns, you just referred us to, again, your letter, which is, we don't need you to read out your letter as we have your comments here. Okay. So we have your summary in the, I'm just looking at your letter a little more carefully than when I did my review, and see if committee members have any questions for you on that. Okay. So, Mr. Vignali, is there anything you'd like to just add orally in addition to what you put in your letter?
Well, I did offer. I did talk to the owner, and I asked if they could modify the roof. So instead of having a wall that's 10, no matter where it is, if they were to do peak it and do a front, make the peak at the front up to 10 meters, and the rear 10 meters, and stay below the guidelines or at the guidelines for sidewalls.
Anyway, we can't start redesigning it at this point. What's before us is what's before us here. I don't know if that was earlier on or before he did his drawings, but what we have before us, there's no opportunity to start to make changes now. The committee will be voting on what's before us, which is the exterior wall height as set out in variances 5 and 6, and the elimination of variance number 7. So it is his variance is not as great as it appeared when number 7 was there. So number 7 was
Okay,
it.
well, yeah.
Was that. So let's, committee members, any questions for Mr. Vignali or for the agent on this or any of the other points? Yes, the city, the planning department is just to tie any approval to that south side elevation. So, any questions, or are we ready for a motion? There's no further questions.
Mr. Chair, I find that a significant issue for some of the neighbors is with respect to a variance that is already will be withdrawn and not included in this decision, variance number 7. It's notable that this project has 18 letters of support from the neighborhood as well. I find the application to be in keeping with the requirements under the Planning Act, and I recommend approval subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2 and the planning condition regarding the building to be in compliance with filed drawings.
And the withdrawal of 7, I guess. Variance of 7.
Withdraw 7.
Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I was second that. So item 7 is being removed from the variances, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. So in that
Sorry,
case,
variances 1 to 6.
yes, 1 to 6 is approved.
Right.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much,
Cornelius, and
committee.
thank you, Mr. Vignali. Okay. Our next application is item number 26, 12A St. George's Boulevard, and it's to enclose the existing rear porch. We only have one speaker, Zulhash Udin, the agent. And on this application, we have, I guess we have support. There's only the 2 variances, length and depth. And Mr. Udin. Yeah, the neighbor at 12 right next door is written in support. And that's all we have. Is Zulhash Udin there, please?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
You're Zulhash?
Yes, sir.
Welcome,
Yes, sir,
welcome,
I'm
sir.
here.
Okay, so this is a very simple application just to enclose the porch.
Yes, sir. Actually, drone are a little big team due to the bylaw changes. The building owner has nothing is doing. It was the footprint. Actual building was like this. When this new zoning bylaw came in 2013, this property got affected. Otherwise, his porch is behind is there. It is open. It is a open porch, but owners now want to close that one.
Yes, so
not
now that
even unheated.
yeah, it's unheated, and it affects just the length and the depth because of that. Because it's enclosed now, it counts, and your neighbors in support. So very straightforward. Let's see if committee members have any questions or if someone's ready to make a motion.
I have a quick question, please, of the applicant. Just for clarification, in your section drawing, where it's unheated, it's drawing 4. It says basement underneath the porch, but I'm assuming that's a crawl space. Is that correct? There's no real basement underneath that.
Yeah, basement. It is cold storage. Yes.
Okay, so there is because I don't see any flooring there. So the existing porch is open and has underneath it a coat cellar.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for approval. I find the variances are very minor in nature.
Okay, and I don't believe there's any conditions, correct? No urban
I
forest.
don't see any conditions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconded for Mr. Bellissimo's motion. Sophia Ruddick, all in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, item number 27, 21 Dartmouth Crescent. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage, and there are 6 variances. We have revised plans. There's a quite a number of platforms. We have a zoning review waiver. We also have a letter of objection that just arrived from number 29. It was actually filed in the junk mail, but it was sent in on a timely basis. So I'll circulate that letter from 29 Dartmouth to the 2 members that are here. This letter basically said that there's a lot of decks, there's no privacy, it's bigger and taller, 7 feet taller than the other houses, be a watchtower over the neighborhood. 3rd floor is a covered deck, in the back another in the front. All the platforms are much larger than what's called for. Can't stop progress. We're entitled to try to make these very ugly modern houses to not take over our neighborhood with their huge size. Okay, so I'll just pass that letter along. We also have another letter that was misfiled. It was filed in our package with item number 32. It's a letter from 14 Dartmouth Crescent. And let's see what else we have. Do we have, we have a lot of opposition. Well, 3 letters of opposition with forestry comments. And as I said, the revised plans. And we're getting some feedback from someone, but we have registered the speaker. Perhaps that's why we have several. We have Arash Darvish, the applicant. And then we have neighbors from 14 Dartmouth. That's the one whose letter was filed with another application. And we have the neighbors at 54 and 46 Eastbourne Crescent. So let's start off with Arash Darvish, the agent. Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Hello, sir. We have some opposition here, and I've just summarized some of the issues. Can you give us a brief presentation on your application here, and then we'll bring it to the neighbors? But I guess you've read the letters of objection?
Yes, I just saw them.
Okay.
All right. The house is going to be occupied by a family of 5. The design was made to stay within our setbacks to affect our neighbors as least as possible. We also had the goal to be sustainable and use the unused part of the house, which is the attic, in our advantage. Mm-hmm. The perimeter of the house is all staying within the allowed height. We made some cutouts, bringing more light and air circulation for us and the neighbors' properties to reduce the energy consumption. In our left elevation, most part of it is open except the roof projection that was used for mechanical room. For parking, the family has a small car. Also, there is another spot on the driveway. Our design, the design we had has some platforms that they are all covered by privacy shades. And also, all we're doing is it's allowed to put platforms that size. You're just utilizing the platform to have a bigger balcony to bring a better quality of life for the occupants.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of. The neighbor pointed out, and I in her letter, you got a lot of balconies, and you got a lot of. There, one of them is the 3rd floor attic rooftop platform is 31 meters.
Those 2 we already eliminated them.
Sorry? The second
Those 2 are if you I had a conversation with the planning department, mm-hmm. and they look at the paper that we sent in, and that's why I was asked to send the revision in. We eliminated those 2 platforms and we're leaving them as roofs.
Well, we have the notice for us that in variance 4. The proposed 2nd story front balcony is 8.47, 3rd story attic was 19.66, and the second story rear platform is 6.78, and the proposed third floor attic rooftop is 31.12. So did you say you're eliminating some of those?
Yes, I did. If you look at number 3, because I was asked to scratch it out on that one, on number 3, we scratched out the roof balcony and also like the 2 rooftops, basically we eliminated them.
So do we have to change?
Sorry, the information you're providing is incorrect. You've made revisions subsequent to your notice being mailed. The committee does not have any of that information.
I did send it
I know you
in.
sent it to the office, but the committee does
Yes.
not have a revised list of variances because these are revisions that were done afterwards.
Yeah, but I sent it to Nicole, and I was asked to send it to Nicole by a certain hour, and I did.
We have these plans as revised September 28th at 11:45 a.m. And it says now it's soft landscaping, so it looks like you've changed this drawing here, A115. Is that what's new?
What I was asked to add like the shades in the front, and also I was asked to remove the 2 platforms upstairs, which it's the 2 rooftops. So we removed both rooftops. So both of them, they got like closed. So they have no access to any of them. They're just staying as roofs.
Madam Secretary Treasurer, I'm looking at it looks like we're getting some feedback, sir. Do you got two things open?
I'm sorry?
We're
No,
getting some feedback.
it can't be from my computer.
Okay. Here's a zoning bylaw notice. Yeah, I see someone scratched off. It said in the zoning bylaw notice here, someone's crossed out where it says 31.12 square meters attic west rooftop terrace and 19.66 attic east rooftop terrace. So Madam Secretary Treasurer, that's been removed.
Staff prepared a revised list, but it's still incorrect as far as I can tell. So if I can ask the agent to verify, if I'm looking at variance 4, which relates to the platforms over a square meter area of 4, you're deleting the third story attic rooftop platform having an area of 31.12, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on. And then you're also deleting the one with the
third story attic
22.
front backly of 19.66. So
Yes.
moving to 19.66 and the 31.12. Those are coming out. So they have to be taken out of the purpose of the application, which this may cut down on some of the comments from the neighbors we're going to still have to go to. But let's get this straight. So you're removing in variance number 4, it's going to read the maximum permitted area of a platform at or above the second story is 4 meters. The proposed second story front balcony will have an area of 8.47 meters squared, and the proposed second story rear platform will have an area of 6.78 square meters, full stop.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's now hear from the neighbors, and you'll have a chance to respond, Mr. Tarvish, okay? So the first speaker is Deborah Lamers of 14 Dartmouth. We have your letter.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, your letter, I just want to go to it and just direct the members. Your letter was in, we have this all in computer now, which is much better. We used to get these huge binders with materials, but it was actually put in at the end of item number 32. So if the members can go to item number 32 under opposition, and you'll see that the letter there is, in fact, the opposition letter from Deborah Lamers and James Pearson on this application. So let's get that letter up. So we do have your letter.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I can speak to it while you pull it up to save time.
Okay, and the other issue is, I guess you've heard that the applicant has now removed the large platforms at the...
That's fine.
Okay.
that's not my main concern. And so I'm very familiar with how this process worked, having stood before you less than a year ago to get approval for my proposed dwelling at 14 Dartmouth, which I'm well underway, thanks to committee approval.
Okay,
However,
so you can tell us how that application, if it exceeds what
Yes.
what you asked for and what you got.
Absolutely. And so I know very much, I am not opposed to development. I certainly know what it's like to have to build a house to accommodate not just a family of 5, but my family, a family of 6.
Okay.
And so whilst I appreciate that it can be challenging to do so and conform to the bylaws, I certainly appreciate the minor variances that are proposed in this plan. However, I'd like to use my experience to draw that parallel. After going back and forth with city planning at length after a deferral of committee of adjustment last year, we were finally approved, but only doing so by significantly reducing our FSI. Our original FSI we proposed for 14 Dartmouth was 0.8 FSI. We then reduced the plans to 0.64, and we're still told from city planning, and I gave examples of area precedents, and they were very firm with us when they said, and I quote, firm in not supporting a variance over 0.6 times the area of the lot. The highest on your street is 0.57 times the area. Please consider revising your proposal to have an FSI of no more than 0.59, which is exactly what we did in order to gain approval. And 14 Dartmouth is still under development and is the last and latest development on that street. City planning went to great lengths to talk to us about the need for gradual development. It was critical in maintaining the streetscape. And we needed to conform such that the property would not have prevailing height, mass, scale, or density. And I've listened to many of these committee meetings, and I would be very concerned as to how and why, regardless of what the upper attic space is used for, a furnace room, even if the walls are only 2 meters high in some places, FSI is still livable space. And a 0.87 FSI, when only 0.4 is allowed by the bylaw, and very clear that city planning only 10 months ago said nothing above, for no reason, 0.6, I would significantly question how the Committee of Adjustment could approve this plan with an FSI of 0.87.
And you notice there's no objection from city planning to this. Now, here's a question. I was just thinking while you were speaking. You're on the opposite side of the street, right? It's
yeah.
You're in the odd number.
I'm 14.
Odd number. Is there any difference in the size, the width, and the depth of the lots on that side of the street? I'm just trying to.
No, actually,
a lot differential.
Great question. We have the 14 Dartmouth had this one of the smaller lots, and no, it's very much similar. I can pull up the exact meters squared of 14 Dartmouth, but it was very, very similar lot size.
Okay, because the reason I asked that, sometimes you'll see an application and, the lot for some reason is either shorter in the back, and they say, well, even though the lot's shorter, you should still have a house that looks like the other houses, even though it's a smaller lot, which puts the FSI number higher. But you're saying that's not a situation. We're comparing apples to apples here.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you look at the site plan and you look at the overhead, where the city provides you the star lot, you can look over at 14 Dartmouth and you can compare the lot size.
Yeah, the excerpt that they gave us from that location map doesn't, go as far as to show your lot. It stops at sort of 18 across the street.
Yeah.
It's cut off, but that was one thing I was looking at to see whether the lot size was somewhat different, resulting in a different FSI.
I am going to pull up my lot size
I can ask.
for you
I'm asking
right
staff
now.
at the same time if they can check, because if a possible extenuating circumstances if that particular lot just for some reason at the back.
Yes, my lot was even smaller than this. My lot, the altered dwelling of 0.8 times the area lot would have been 239.18 meters squared.
Okay.
Which was less than what 0.87 is asking for right now. What 21 Dartmouth. and I was still denied that.
Right. I don't know if you just had a different planner. We'll hear
Yes,
from
but
the
that
applicant.
therein lies the inconsistency that is of my concern,
Well,
right?
yeah,
City planning has the same official plan and the same rules should abide by, right?
On the same street for sure. So this and a year different.
On the
Some
same
of it was
street.
10 years ago. It's
Correct.
301.18 square meters. You had how many square meters?
293.18.
Huh? You got 293?
No, God, no. That's what I asked for.
Oh, I see. Okay. So what did you give? He's getting he's asking for 301 square meters.
Correct.
Correct. Which works out to 0.87. And you're saying you got 0.59.
Yes, on a 147.21 meter lot. So I ended up getting just under 160 square meters.
Big difference. And that would be at 0.59.
Huge difference.
At 0.59.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Committee members, do you have any questions for the neighbor, for Deborah Lamers? And you found her letter, I guess, behind number 32. Okay, if there's no questions, let's go to the next neighbor. And we have two neighbors, it looks like at the rear, 54 and 46 Eastbourne Crescent. David JELLICOE as at 54.
Hello, thanks for listening to me today. I'm not opposed to appropriate redevelopment, as Deborah said. I renovated my own home in 1991, and I vetted some minor variances by showing the plans to my neighbors. They signed a petition supporting it, and I sent that in with my application. And the biggest variance I needed at the time was an FSI of 0.45. And the committee granted that, and in the years since, roughly 30 years I've been living there, it hasn't caused a problem for anyone.
Right.
So
you're
again,
right. You're right behind.
context.
You're right behind the property.
No, I'm
You're
about
46?
5.
Sorry,
I'm
50.
5,000.
Sorry. It's the other guy at 46 who's right behind.
Yes.
I see where you are.
I'm 5 houses west of that property. We share the backyard fence along on that side.
Yep.
So my issue is, in addition to the huge size, like at 0.87, that'll be by far the largest house in our community of Crescent Point. Crescent Point was built in 1910. At the time, they stuck a silver maple on every property, and some of those silver maples are still there. An offspring of one of them is growing in the back of 21 Dartmouth. I see that tree from my backyard. When to get that 0.87, they'll have to take that tree out. And I'm going to be looking at a rooftop that's taller than anyone else's. Up till now, I thought it was going to have a watchtower on top as well. But a very clear sightline. I'll lose a tree from 5 neighbors away, and I will be looking at a roof taller than anyone's. The roof of a house that is larger, so disproportionately larger than anyone else's as well. That's about my additional point. I think everything else was covered off in the letters that you've already got from Dartmouth.
Yep. Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions for Mr. JELLICOE at 54? So he's in the back, a few houses over. And if not, we'll move on to the other neighbor at 46, Frank Bellotta, who is right directly behind. Mr. Bellotta?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, we do. We live exactly behind 21 Dartmouth,
Right.
my wife and I.
I can ask you the questions before you get started. I asked Ms. Lamers. The lots are pretty consistent in frontage and depth. They're consistent.
Yes.
Your lot is the
Yes.
same size as the lot.
Yeah, so listen, I sell in the area as well, and they are all very consistent. So
Okay.
on Eastbourne, we might have frontages a little wider, and then they narrow because the street bends a little bit.
Right.
But, on that street, they're mostly 35 by 104, a lot of them. So.
Okay, can you let us know what your concerns are?
Well, okay, I'm doing this by telephone, so I don't have the screen in front of me to see what these changes that were recommended or anything, but I have the same concern as everybody else.
Right, too big.
I'll start by saying the same thing. I'm not anti-development as well. we did 5 or 6 years ago, if you look on the record, we did a renovation as well.
Okay.
But, we tried to keep it in line with what was going on in the area. We tried to keep the character of the area. I did sit down with my neighbors, and I don't think I had letters of approval at the time, but I did have their blessing.
Right.
So
Okay, sir, do you know what your FSI is? What's your FSI in your house?
You know what? I don't have it here. I don't have it here with me, but I can tell you this. I turn everything into square feet.
Yep.
Because for my just so I can get a picture of it, and what they're going for is like 32 or 3,200 and some odd square feet is floor space.
Mm-hmm.
My house is barely 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
And I had to go for variances for that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, because only
Right,
0.4.
and my issue with that house, I'm not going to go on because while I was sitting here waiting, I read everybody's letters as well.
Yep.
I didn't realize when I registered to speak because I missed the deadline. I didn't notice these letters, but today I noticed that there was 5 on there, and I read them, and I'm in agreement with each and every one of them that this is way, 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 over what the area. At first I don't know. He says it's for his family, and maybe it is, but at first I thought that to me it smelled like it was just trying to maximize profits here with very little regard to the character of the street, the neighborhood, or with all the other issues with the platforms, the neighboring properties, the neighbors adjoining to both sides. I think there's a letter there from 3 of us now, right in front, beside, and now me right behind. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's others in the area that have an issue with technology, that if it was explained to them what was going on, and we weren't in a period of COVID, they would be in the chambers today standing up opposing this.
Yep.
So,
okay,
and I'm not opposed to them doing it, but I'd like to do it. And I have some, other than the letters, having read the letters, for me, being on the back and sharing a lot line with them, he's leaving, there's 20 feet by the time he finishes his platforms and everything, there's 20 feet to my back lot line. I went for a walk the other day along Dartmouth, looked back. All the new houses, they still have a backyard that people can enjoy, and people can, I'm going to be looking at a wall 20 feet away that's 27, 28 feet high now, with balconies and platforms. Or the platform up top, if you put a bathroom up there, it's obviously to party on or to have some fun on too, which is nothing wrong with. But when you're looking over all the neighbors, it kind of takes away from our enjoyment.
Of course. Okay, Mr. Mulata, thank you very much for your insight and submissions, and letting us know about your house that was renovated and the impact on you both from the platforms. They have agreed now to remove the larger platforms, but
I do, but it's still going to be an open space that they're going to use. It's still space. It's still 3 stories high, right?
Exactly. Okay, thank you, sir.
There's going to be there's a 2-piece bathroom up there too. Yeah. I don't have the plan in front of me, but I think there's a bathroom up there.
Well, maybe they'd invite you to the parties if they have parties, but we'll have to see if they get approved.
Yeah,
first.
But by the time I get to that bathroom, I'll have an accident. It's so far up in the air.
Okay, Mr. Mulata, thank you so much. Let's go back now to the applicant, to Mr. Darvish, to respond to the concerns of the neighbors. Notwithstanding you removing those larger platforms at the front and back, the neighbors are still opposed. They still believe it is way in excess at 0.87 than what anyone else has got, and it's too big for the lot. So you can respond, and I think you were the one. We're back hearing that same little click. So there's some kind of interference, and it's coming from you.
I don't know.
Anyway,
so.
let us. You can please respond to that, and we'll take it into committee for a decision.
I'm sorry for the neighbor that the planning was against the square footage that he was going to go put there, but that shows that this area has the urgency to have bigger homes. It's not only this street. When we look at the whole area of Mimico in total, many houses, they have much bigger houses that they had before. It's looking at the that didn't get approved is very personal to me. And in returns of like building a house that's affecting my neighbors, I'm still building this house within the setbacks. So from the back, like I'm allowed to build up to that point.
Yes, sir. You're permitted to build 0.4 times the area of a lot here, 139 meters. You're seeking to about 301 square meters, which is a 0.87. Do you have any other houses to show us where anyone got close to 0.87 in the immediate vicinity?
17 Stanley Avenue, I believe. Like if we go to Burlington, it was number 82 Burlington. They got 86%.
Are those okay? First of all, we need to know: are these areas where they're only allowed 0.4 or 0.6 or something else? Because
they're only allowed 0.4. It was actually done by the same person
No,
who designed for.
17 Stanley's in a different zone.
There you go.
They're allowed 0.6. They went to 0.82.
You see, they were allowed 0.6. They went to 0.82. The secretary treasurer is telling me, but that's also, we need to know the immediate vicinity. So any houses on Eastbourne or on Dartmouth. From what the neighbor at 14 is telling me, she researched this very carefully, and
Dartmouth,
she got 0.59. So, and I tried asking, is her lot size any different than your lot? Anyway,
when we go to
just let us. So you're saying that you feel, notwithstanding what the neighbors are saying, you feel that your house is worthy of approval at 0.87 because you're saying you building within the parameters of the lot. That's what you just said,
yes.
right?
Also, 36 meters of it is my. It's basically the attic space that it does not make any difference from outside. I could have, if my attic space, instead of being at 2 meters, it was at 1.8 meters, it wasn't even considered a square footage.
Okay,
and
so
that's 30.
You're saying to mitigate that some of your FSI is buried in the attic and would look no different than if it was a plain attic. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Anything like that, or we'll take and see if committee members have any questions for you or any follow-up questions, and bring it in for a motion and a decision.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question of the applicant.
Yes.
Yes, Dan.
You're aware the committee of adjustment process has to do with neighbors. Did you make any attempt to talk to the neighbors while you were developing the design?
I spoke to my neighbor in my side. I explained to him that I'm building like within the within the setbacks. I also had a conversation with the person in front of me, but those was the only two neighbors that I spoke to them over there.
So a neighbor on one side? Go ahead, Gandhi. Sorry.
Two side of, I think.
Sorry, I have the floor. So you never showed the neighbors your design proposal or the development of the proposal. I just wanted to hear if that happened.
No, I didn't.
Okay, thank you.
Didn't have the chance.
You didn't
sorry, you didn't have the chance?
I'm not from the neighborhood, so I don't know any of the neighbors. I only been to that neighborhood 2 to 3 times, right?
Well, you know, okay, that's your answer. Thank you.
No.
Okay. Okay, yeah, because there's the neighbors. It seems to be mainly the neighbors behind and on the street who are concerned with the built form, that it's out of character. So any further questions, or is someone ready to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. I find that the FSI is more than twice what's allowed, and I find that variance is not at all minor. And I also have issues with the height, irrespective of the fact that part of it would have been an attic and is now being used as for HVAC and is part of the FSI. Although the design is interesting, I find a height excessive. I don't think it's in keeping. So I would make a motion to not approve the variances.
Okay, it's a motion for refusal from Mr. Bellissimo, seconded by Ms. Ruddick. All in favor? Okay, the application is unanimously refused. Thank you, Mr. Darvish, and thank you to the neighbors. Application is refused, and we'll now move on to item number 28. 28 is 128 Queens Avenue. This is an application to construct a two-story front addition. There are two variances. We have 3 letters of support and nothing else. No comments from concerns from neighbors, and nothing from city staff. And we have one speaker, Stephen Kanjar, the agent.
Correct.
Mr. Kanjar.
Yes, Kanjar.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, committee. So I'd like to start off with the introduction of my proposal here. I'm the agent for 128 Queens Avenue, and like you said, what we have before you is a front 2-story addition. It's a fairly straightforward application with only 2 variances, a front yard setback and a roof eaves projection. I'd like to start off with a little background information. The owners, Sheila and Ross, are a young family with young growing children. They're looking to extend their home that's not currently meeting their family's needs.
So, excuse me, sir, Mr. Kanjar, yes. I know you prepared something, but I'm not sure it's really necessary for you to make a fulsome presentation, and just perhaps see if any members have any questions for you. As you said, it's a very simple front addition with only 2 variances. If you've been listening in, it's not as major as
it's not extensive.
So let's just see if committee members have any questions for you. If someone's ready to make a motion, I don't see any conditions or objections from staff or neighbors. Anyone have any questions for the agent, or is someone ready to make a motion?
I don't have a question. I have a comment. I find that the application is very sensitive to the neighborhood. The notion of keeping the addition at the front and even the existing part of the building, I find it very applaudable. And I would like to make a motion if there are no other questions by the other members.
Okay, so motion from Mr. Bellissimo for approval of the application.
I'd like to make a motion to find the variances are minor in nature. I'd like to make a motion for approval of the variances.
Seconded by Ms. Ruddock. All in favor? Sorry, we have a condition from Urban Forestry. Friendly amendment, Mr. Bellissimo?
Urban Forestry?
Yes, sorry, I forgot that forestry condition. Correct. Thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you, Donald. Okay. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next application is item number 29, 17 Jellicoe Avenue. It's to construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, and there are 3 variances. We have nothing on file on this application, just a straight top-up. Is there nothing with urban forestry on this one?
I think there is.
Or is there urban?
No?
No? Okay. And the agent is Mark Lilly. Mr. Lilly.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to confirm that you're there. It's very straightforward, so I don't think we need a presentation. Let's just see if committee members have any questions for you, or if someone's ready to make a motion.
Sure.
Straight top up. So I take it variance number 3 is existing? Front lot line? Or is there something being added on at the front there?
At the front is existing. It's just that we're adding the second floor and the balcony, or not the balcony, sorry, the covered porch canopy at the front. That's the only addition.
Okay. So very simple top up.
Mr. Chair, I find the variances to meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act and recommend approval without conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for that. Sophia Reddick, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Have a great afternoon. Item number 30, 11 Cronin Drive. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage and only 2 variances, coverage of 1.2% over, and the FSI of 0.67. whereas 0.5 is permitted. And all we have on this application is a previous decision of committee. And that's all we have. The agent and urban forestry condition. David Glassford is the agent, who's actually the owner. I see he lives at the property. Mr. Glassford.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Very straightforward application, so I don't think we need a presentation. We'll just see if committee members have any questions. And congratulations to you if you can building a new detached dwelling or proposing one with only 2 small variances.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Thank you.
anyone have any questions? I see you were previously at committee for, or the property was previously at committee sometime
In the past.
in the past, but it doesn't have any bearing because you're building, and this is a new build.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Glassford?
I do.
Yes. Donald Taylor has a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Could you explain what was insufficient for your purposes with the September 2019 approval?
September 2019. I believe that would be the previous owner who made that application. Because I took possession of the property.
Okay, so
just
that
shortly
approval
following that.
probably expired due to inaction, and now you're
Not really.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Madam Secretary Treasurer, application, it's not, unless it's a consent and a severance, they don't expire. Because are you saying it's exactly the same? And this variance is the same?
Yeah, I wasn't even aware that the previous owner had made an application to the Committee of Adjustment. I'm just being aware of it now, being made aware of it now.
Wow, because they had 9 yeah.
No, the previous decisions are of properties in the area, not of the subject property.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
okay.
I thought it was a previous decision
No,
on this
no.
property, because I've never seen.
They haven't, he didn't submit a cover letter, but it's just of other properties
I
in the
see
area.
that now.
Oh, so who
54,
did-
54 Northampton.
Did Mr. Glassford submit this?
He must have, because we wouldn't, there's a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
Wow.
No.
Because I got confused. We thought this was a previous decision. Normally, when we see the reference in our notes to a previous decision, it means a previous decision on the same.
That's what
same
that was
property.
my mistake.
Okay.
So, sir, you do need
Okay.
you do need to be here today.
Okay.
No, that was okay. So, is anyone ready to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. Find that the variances are minor in nature, and I move approval of the variances.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconder for that motion.
Microphone.
Were urban forestry conditions 1 and 2 part of your motion, Danny? And if they weren't, I would appreciate them being.
Sorry, you're right. I forgot. I keep on forgetting the forest conditions. They
Yeah,
were.
you can't
Please add
forget
that.
them.
Your friendly amendments accepted by me.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. That's a seconder. All in favor? Unanimous approval, Mr. Glassford. Good luck with your new home.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good luck with your new home.
Thank you.
Item number 31 is 111 Cornelius Parkway. It's a detached dwelling with a attached garage. Again, only 2 variances. Coverage of 2.72% and 0.6 on the north side lot line. Oh, sorry, and a little more on the front south side lot line. And what do we have on this application? I don't believe we have much. 6 letters of support and forestry. And the agent is Zoran Ternanik.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Zoran. Very straightforward application. I'll congratulate you like I congratulated the last speaker for designing a house, a new build with only 2 small variances. Let's see if committee members have any questions for you. You're aware of the urban forestry condition, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ternanik? We have 6 letters of support, no letters of objection, or sort of form letters. And like I said, there's only 2 variances of the urban forestry.
I'd like to make a motion. And the condition on forestry, I find the variances are minor in nature and I approve the variances.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellissimo. Seconded for Mr. Bellissimo's motion. Ms. Reddick, all in favor? Unanimous approval.
Thank you
sir.
very much.
Thank you. Okay, item number 32 is 327 Maple Leaf Drive. It's an application to construct a 1-story rear addition. We have 2 variances, length and depth. We have 3 planning conditions of approval being requested. We have an Orbis report. TRCA has no objection, although they point out a permit is still required prior to the issuance of a building permit. And we have the neighbors at 329, 333, and 325 who are all okay with the application. And we have a letter of opposition, which is again the wrong, it was Miss Lamer's letter from the previous application. So we do have no letter of opposition on this. It was just the one that was misfiled from the earlier one this afternoon. And we have the agent, Michael Swan, registered, as well as the owner, Mr. Bozo, in the event that there are questions. He's available to answer. So we have no neighbors with concerns, just the agent and the owner. Mr. Swan.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, how are you? I'm Michael Swan from
Yes.
Homes to Be, and I'm representing Dino and Sanyo Batso.
Yes, and it's a very simple 1-story rear addition with only 2 small variances. Well, they're
Yes, it's actually a
they're only
replacement.
length and depth, but the depth is almost 9 meters longer, and the length is about 5 meters longer.
Right.
So 7. Can you explain why what's triggering those variances?
Yes, the existing building has a greenhouse attachment that was built approximately 40 years ago. This greenhouse is in decay, and they're wishing to replace it in the same location. As it exists today, it already has an existing building depth and building length that match what the owners wish to have.
Okay.
So it's no further length or depth to the proposal.
Okay, and I guess what's cut off, I'm just looking now at the planning report and the suggested conditions. It's that the rear covered porch shall not be enclosed. So it's triggering the length and depth, but they're saying it's okay as long as you don't enclose it, that there'll be no access to the roof of the 1-story rear addition, and the proposed 1-story rear addition shall be constructed substantially in accordance with the drawings dated September 17th. So you're okay with all of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Swan? Or for his client who's standing by, or is someone ready to make a motion?
I have a question.
Yep.
Yes.
Mr. Swan, are you aware that you need a permit from the Toronto Region Conservation Authority before you get a building permit? Have you been advised of that?
We actually received it, yes. We know that there's an email on file, but there is actually a permit from them. They have fully approved it.
Okay. Yeah, this was a memo. This was the September 16th memo that's pointing out that, well, I just said in my introduction that they're still saying they have no objection, but they're still pointed out that you still need a permit unless you got it prior to getting your building permit. So just Mr. Taylor just must make sure you're aware of that. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I find the variances meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move for approval subject to the conditions set out by the Planning Department.
Okay, the 3 conditions. Thank you. Second for Mr. Taylor's motion. Ms. Reddick, all in favor? Unanimous approval, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, committee.
We have a couple of more items left to do, but we're going to take a 5-minute break. And then we'll come back and do the remaining 3 items. Okay.
How do you guys get in? Do you get in? How do you get in when you come back? Like, do they let you in? Yeah, but with the no, like, do you go through the
Oh, to
front?
go outside. Oh,
Yeah,
have
how
to
do you get
make sure
back
the
in?
security guard is
Okay, yeah, he wasn't.
That's why we have Barb's number. I give you like you get locked in.
Okay,
I
I
called
called.
her this morning. I called her. I said,
Okay.
"Come on up there," 'cause
I called him, but he was on vibrate. Then I called Adam, and Adam called.
Okay, we should be finished.
Okay.
We're just taking a 5-minute break, and then we have only 3 more items, so I should be able to pick her up. But it might be a little past 3:30. She'll just have to wait for me. Hopefully, I'll be done by about 3:15. That's not good.
have to give you some Starbucks money from me next month.
My first time,
Yeah.
you go up the street, you just walk into Morton. There's a small plaza like a Bloomfield Mall that's an kilometer that way.
Right.
And there's a Popeyes, Pizza Hut.
Oh, there is?
Sandwich place.
And there was a Starbucks? Oh, down just down Brennansville? Okay. Next time, because I come down Bloor, so I don't know what's on Brennansville. West like Dufferin St. Clair area? Yeah.
I lived at Bathurst St. Clair.
Oh yeah.
Then I got divorced. My wife got me out, and so she's still there.
Okay, yeah. And where do you live now? Okay. Nice. In the condo? Nice. Wow. Yes. Yeah.
No problem. We're almost. Okay, so we're on to item 33. Okay, so we're back. Item number 33 is 188 ALDERCREST Road. It's an application for a new detached dwelling with an attached garage, and there are 5 variances. Transportation has conditions of approval, and we have 5 variances. And we have the speaker, Mirka Kulesga, agent, and the neighbor at 430 Rimmelton on this application. Right, we have a coverage variance, we have gross floor area, the permitted height to the midpoint of the roof, the area of the second story platform, and the driveway width. Is Mirka Kuleska there, please?
Yes, I'm here. This is Mirka Kulesza. Good afternoon. Good afternoon this time.
Good afternoon. Yes, so we have forestry, we have transportation, we have
Yes.
support and opposition. 4 letters of opposition. So
That's
would you like to
correct.
give us a brief explanation of your application, and then we'll hear from the neighbors and you'll have a chance to respond.
Of course. We are proposing a 2-story dwelling for a young growing family. There are 2 adults and 2 kids. I think the whole application should be looked at within the context of existing site conditions. It's a very small site, and with very small front line, which is a little bit over 9 meters. We are requesting increased coverage from allowed 33% to 36% of the lot area. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that for coverage, when coverage is calculated in Toronto, all covered structures covering the lot are included. This, in our case, includes a large deck, which basically consists, it is 5% of the coverage. This deck has no foundation walls. It's a wooden deck on posts. So basically, the coverage within the fears of the neighborhood regarding flooding, the coverage actually is below 2% below the allowed 33%, the coverage of the main building. As I said, because
Okay, so hold on. Can I just interject? So you're saying that you're 36, but the dwelling itself is at 33. Is that what you're saying?
No, dwelling itself is at 31.
Okay.
Which is 2% below allowed, excuse me, 33%.
But the coverage includes the
The coverage includes the deck.
The deck.
Just the wooden deck on posts. So there is nothing under the deck. There is no foundation wall, nothing. There's grass, basically. Okay. May I proceed?
But the reason it includes the deck is because it's a covered deck.
Yeah, if it wasn't covered, it wouldn't be included, right?
No, it's included as well. We've clarified it with the zoning person, with Vita Majubi, and we actually asked her for clarification, and she said she included both covered and uncovered deck. The covered deck is about 14 square meters. Uncovered deck is 4.7 square meters. But in Toronto, every single deck, regardless of whether it's covered or uncovered, is included in the coverage. This is what we were told by the zoning person. We discussed it with her quite extensively.
And Madam Secretary, you're saying that, as far as you know, only the covered portion was included, and it's always included, and the uncovered is not included.
I don't want to speak for a zoning examiner, but in this case, the applicant does have a large rear covered deck and a covered front porch. So there's a small deck that isn't covered, but the covered parts are, for the large part, due to the house and the covered front porch and the covered deck.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like I said, it's quite large. There's the covered deck of 14 square meters and the uncovered deck of 4.7 meters.
Yes, that's correct.
So it is what I'm saying. If we're looking at a comparison and the people are coming, with saying, well, it's only 34 should be given.
I'm sorry. I cannot really hear you very well. It's cutting you out. I'm sorry. Would you repeat, please?
I'm saying, but if it's 33% is permitted, you're at 36% at 134.35 square meters. And the question is whether that includes the covered platforms, which it does, I believe, and not the uncovered portion. But what I was saying is, if that's the case, then that's the case for everyone.
Okay.
So if someone says, well, this, that normally 33 is permitted and they don't go to 36, then it's the same for everyone, that the covered portions of the deck would be included.
Okay. May I quote you the email that we received from Vita Majubi, who was the zoning person, who is the zoning person on this contract, on this project?
Well, I don't want to just...
It's dated August 11, and in this, she said, in this case, the area of front porch, both covered and uncovered deck, are included in lot coverage calculation.
Did you say for the front porch?
Yes, the front porch, of course, it's obvious. It's a covered.
But did you say something? Well, I didn't hear anything about the rear. Because the rear is where you have a combination of covered and uncovered, right?
Yes. And what she says is that both covered and uncovered deck are included in lot coverage calculation. These are zoning officer's words, zoning person's words.
But did I hear you say only for the front, or can you want to read it back one more time?
No, we are talking about the deck at the back.
Okay. And you're saying it says there that both the covered and uncovered portion are included?
Yes, that's what she confirmed. I remember myself talking to her about this because depending on municipality, it's calculated differently. In this case, she specified, she included both covered and uncovered deck.
Okay, so let's hear from the neighbors and you'll have a chance to respond. Unless there's anything you'd like to add. Okay, so we had 3 letters from the people in Rimmelton at the back, 434, 430, and 432. And we had total of 4 opposition letters, including 186 next door. And that, I believe, is the person who's registered to speak. So let's hear from, that person isn't registered. It's 430 Rimmelton who has registered to speak. Is Rosanna Burkhart there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Okay.
One of the residents, Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying we have your letter and we have as well letters from your both 2 of your neighbors right next door. at 434 and 432, and as
Right.
well from 186 right next door. So we have your letter, but you
Right.
want to just give us a short presentation as to what your main concerns are with what's proposed here.
Yes, so basically Remilton runs east and west, and my backyard basically sees into all the backyards running along ALDERCREST.
Yeah.
Barb was unable to participate today because she had specialist appointments, but I noticed that she did submit a letter of
Yes.
objection.
Yeah.
I don't speak for her, but some of her concerns as a neighbor clearly affect our lot in the backyard portion. I don't like, I'm basically saying build within the maximum permitted coverage, because with these applications, every time there's a variance, someone else can say, well, this neighbor got it, that neighbor got it, etc. Our concerns mainly are sight lines. While the deck is included in the 31%, if my fence is 6 feet tall, that deck sits, I would assume, above the fence line and is in direct view into my backyard and me into their parties and celebrations, which I hope they have many of. We don't object to development in the area. Clearly, it's happening. However, as in Phil's letter, who's a neighbor, and Lola's letter, we have serious concerns with drainage. And the city, a remedy would be for the city to put in a $30,000 sewer catch basin somewhere. Now that these homes are starting to extend further back on the footprint, it just keeps being avoided, I guess, at this point. So those are the main concerns. I don't want to be in a fishbowl with, if it's a new subdivision, you know what you're buying into. Everybody has a deck and a raised view, etc. But in allowing these variations, it's changing, the quiet enjoyment of my property. And when we live in 1,000 square feet, which I suspect is also the current owner's square footage. So I can see why he needs more footprint in his home. But, we use our backyard April to November for that reason, because, doesn't really accommodate staying inside and enjoying small cramped space. If this were in front of my house, there have been developments that are 2-3 stories, but I don't spend time in my front living room looking out at the street. We don't have large decks at the front either. So in the backyard, it does directly impact all of its neighbors.
Right.
And
So I
we've
see.
noticed that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm saying you guys are on the side. It's like a key lot situation. So they're next to 186. And then all you got on Remilton, you're sort of on the side. So you would be looking out your backyard at the side of their house. You're not, the ones behind are Alderbray, but you're on the side. And that's why there's an impact because of the key lot situation.
Yeah, like I look further, like when I'm standing at the back of my house, I can see all of the backyards. If I stood on my table, all of the backyards. There is one large house that was built that I can see. It's maybe 10 stories away from where my backyard is. So just based on that general idea, I can, I understand that the homes are being built at that level. That's not the objection. This is a new build. They can certainly build within the bylaws as they're drafted. And I object to, living in a fishbowl with these decks that now impact all of the neighbors. And if that person gets a deck, somebody else is going to get a deck. And then there's a variation of that deck. And that's basically our objection.
Okay. So.
And the water. The water is a big deal.
Okay, but you're just looking at the
we're built on
coverage. So the coverage issue, I think you said at the outset, whether it's all house or house and covered platforms, someone could come and say, now I can build a house at 36% just the house, because using this at 36 as opposed to 0.33.
Right.
Okay, and
Right.
the issue of the drainage, or that's with every large home, people talk about there's less ground to absorb the rainwater because there's more house. So that's
Right,
the
and
situation
the
with every
eaves
large
troughs
build.
drain
Yeah.
to the back. Yeah, and the eaves troughs drain to the back, you know, and it just trickles down to each of the neighbors. While they have sump pumps on their property that deal with water on their property, well, it has to drain off somewhere, and that's already an issue. And now we don't know until the house is built, and it's too late to say, well, now it's a bigger problem.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Burkett. Let's see if anyone has any questions for you. Otherwise, we'll go back to the agent to respond to your concerns and then take it into committee for a decision. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Burkhardt? And we have the 4 opposition letters from her neighbors and the one next door at 186. Okay, Mirka, would you like to respond to the neighbors' concerns?
Yes. With pleasure. We received the letters a few days before the deadline for submissions, and we carefully studied the letters. Basically, the main point of the opposition is the flooding issue, which we know is part of a much larger problem in Etobicoke and Alderwood. We are not at this point to discuss the solutions for preventing this problem. I can only say that new house will have deeper foundation walls than existing ones, and the water will flow into that backyard anyway. So the water will flow into the backyard more. The next point is existing coverage and paved areas on the lots in question. 188, 186, and the lots on Rimmleton. They also contribute to the flooding. So that would be my comment on that. Regarding the coverage and the deck being used for future entertaining, I cannot really comment here. I'm not in a position to do this. I know that the deck is reasonable. I think, and again, it's a deck which doesn't really contribute to the flooding issue. Plus, it's a deck that really a large family needs. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that present floor area of the house is 70 square meters. The floor area of the footprint of the house, the new one, will be 115 meters, including the garage, of course. So this is the change, which basically, again, if we do not add the deck, and especially the uncovered deck, is 2% below allowed coverage. As for privacy issues, I can understand the concerns, and I'm really sorry to hear that, because we all go through this, us who live in large cities or have small lots. The location of Mrs. Burkhardt's backyard is really, the backyard is really not adjacent to 188. This is one thing. It's the next number, 188, that is the property in question right now. I cannot really comment on the behavior of owners, who's gonna look where and so on. That's not my role here. I just want to make sure that we comply with zoning as much as possible within the very limited lot area. And that's basically all I can say. I absolutely understand Mrs. Burkhardt's concerns, and especially the flooding concern. It's a concern of ours too. We've done homes in Etobicoke for years, and we know it's not the first time when we are faced with this situation. Okay. Maybe I'm missing something. Please ask if it's not sufficient.
Okay, committee members, any questions for the agent or for the neighbor, or someone ready to make a motion?
May I just mention one thing?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. As you are aware, there are conditions from transportation and forestry.
Yeah.
There is a city tree located right in front of the front lot line, which the city wants to preserve. Actually, we want to preserve it, and the owners would like to preserve the tree. So when we submitted site plan for zoning, for Committee of Adjustment application, we submitted it with the site plan which was commented on by the forestry. We received forestry comments and memorandum on the 30th of September. On the very same day, we redesigned the driveway to make sure that we interfere with the roots of the tree as little as possible. In fact, we redesigned it this way that we are gaining 4 square meters of soft landscaping in the vicinity or directly within the drip line of the tree. So we sent this revised site plan to the forestry, but I believe that the window of opportunity was closed. We couldn't really do anything. Well, we hired an arborist as well, who's preparing arborist plan. The transportation conditions are in direct contradiction of forestry conditions. Transportation wants us to make the driveway in straight line from the garage space to the street, to the lot line, which of course is something that the forestry will never allow, because they are losing basically theoretically the tree would be lost. So we have to marry and juggle both. I think that what we came up with, probably you don't have access to this file, is the optimal solution of the issue.
Okay, first of all, Ms. Kuleska, you should have mentioned this earlier when you were first giving us your presentation, after your rebuttal to the neighbor. If you're telling us that the transportation and forestry conditions contradict one another, because transportation, I mentioned they have imposing conditions, and I introduced the application, and then we have the urban forestry. So you'll have to work it out, I guess, if we're going to make it subject.
Yes,
Assuming the committee approves it, it's going to be subject to transportation and subject to forestry, and then you can work it out with the two of them. Okay?
Yeah, we are absolutely aware of that. And yes.
Okay, so let's take it into committee now. So we're going to only if you're asked a question, can you? Good thing you told us that at the last minute. It would have been better to know at the outset. But in any event, you'll have to work that out with the two departments, and hopefully a way that helps to retain the tree rather than injure or destroy the tree. So you can work it out with the two of them.
We are doing our best.
Figure what's best for
We are doing our best.
Okay. So first of all, you need to get a motion of approval. So let's see how committee members feel about your application. Taking into committee.
I just have a quick question of the applicant regarding the rear deck. The covered and the uncovered portion, is that a concrete slab? The drawing doesn't indicate that, or is that going to be open slabs?
No, it's just a plain wood deck on posts. There is no slab there. There is no foundation walls, nothing.
So it's water permeable, and there's just gravel or something underneath it at grade.
Yes, absolutely. It's water permeable. We are aware of that, and
Thank you.
that it might be an issue.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know, because it wasn't clear on the drawings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And again, in terms of it being drainable or permeable, there is a roof. So the part that's under the roof isn't going to get the water. It's going to run off, I guess, through some kind of eaves trough somewhere. Because the covered portion is not going to go on the deck, right? Yeah. Even though it's permeable.
Yes, absolutely. That's part of the design. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone ready to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I find this proposal to be quite appropriate for the neighborhood. I find the variances to be extremely minor in nature, and I have no hesitation to move that the application be approved, subject to urban forestry condition number 1 and the transportation department conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seconder for Mr. Taylor's motion. Sophia Ruddick, all in favor? You have approval, unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our next application is item number 34. 34, it is 66 North Park Drive. It's an application to construct a new detached dwelling with an integral garage. A previous Committee of Adjustment application approved variances relating to front yard setback, side yard setback, height, platform area, and platform setbacks. This is now of length, flat roof, and finished floor height, and exterior stairs. So I think we have also, planning is recommending refusal, 46 and 68 North Parker in support. Councillor Nunziata is in support and feels the change to the roof is an improvement. It looks like they built beyond the permission granted in June 2020. And there's some requests for a refund for some reason. It looks like the variance might have been missed, but given that, the applicant has now taken the opportunity, as explained in a letter, I believe, to make further changes into the change in the roof to a flat roof.
And we also have Councillor Nunziata.
Yes, I said Councillor Nunziata is in support, and she's also, even though she's just showing that Laura Salvatore is registered to speak, we do have Councillor Nunziata on the line as well. And like I said, planning is not in support of these further changes as set out in their memo. So let's first hear from the agent, and then we also have ravine comments. We have support letters, 2 support letters, and no letters of opposition. Is Laura Salvatore there, please?
Hi, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I don't know if I correctly summarized. It looks like there was there was either a missing variance, but given that you have to come back for the missing variance, your client has now taken the opportunity to redesign the roof plan, triggering some additional variances as well.
Yes, so I'm actually the owner. So I'm the applicant and owner, and I'm happy to take you through that today. And I did submit a presentation materials, so it'd be handy if the committee had those in front of them as we go through.
Yeah, we have your supporting materials, the photos you've supplied. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
Yeah, we have these photos and the letter.
Okay, great. I'm happy to spend a few minutes here, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. So my name is Laura Salvatore. This home has been in my family for over 35 years. My grandparents previously lived here, and now me and my husband are building our forever home here. I was also born at 46 North Park, so this community has been part of my life for the entirety of my life. Just to touch quickly on the point you referenced about the previous committee approval, I'll quickly go over that. So we came to committee back in January. We received approval for all of our variances. We were very excited to get going and start the build in early fall. So we should have been underway by now. However, in early August, we received a notice from the zoning department that several variances had been missed. At this point, the drawings had not been changed at all. So we had a good dialogue with the zoning department. They admitted that it was their error and oversight. They quickly worked to prepare a revised zoning and applicable law notice. And so here we are today to deal with those. As you mentioned, we have had discussions with the city planners on this. They have some concerns around the height variance. So I'm going to spend my time here today, my few minutes on that alone. And certainly if there's other questions, I'm happy to go through those as well. I also like to point out for the committee that our lot size is 62 feet by 387 feet. It is a very large, beautiful lot. It's not a typical lot size by any means. And so we'd just like to mention that up front because clearly, there's not a one size fits all approach, which is why we're before the committee today. So I'd like to point you to pages 2 and 3 of the presentation materials. There are visuals there of the first one is entitled The Prior South Elevation COA Approved Plan. So this is what the committee would have approved back in January. And so I think it's coming up on the screen. And so, and then if you flip to page 3, you will see the new south elevation plans. This is actually a figure from our designer, which we engaged. Oh, actually, yeah, it's, I will point to, I can help guide this. So I think it would be in the, I don't know, no, not the plans. Let's see where it is. Maybe scroll up on the left menu. Yeah, that's perfect. That's it right there. Yep. Okay, wonderful. So this is what the committee would have approved. And then if you flip to the next page, just scroll one down, this is the new elevation plan. So again, we made some changes between the previous approval and resubmission to the committee, primarily to change the roof. We engaged a designer and we wanted to make the roof more aesthetically pleasing. We, as you can see, certainly a flatter roof. I would like to make sure that the committee is aware that the actual envelope and the height of the house is actually less than was approved in January. It is slightly less tall.
Can I just interrupt you for a second there? I think that's very important because especially when you read this, it shows that you previously got a height of 10.42 and now with a flat roof, it's a meter higher.
Correct.
So that's a very important thing to know, that it's just a measurement issue. And in fact, it's not higher than what was previously with the slope roof. It's just a matter of how it's done. Correct?
Thank you for pointing that out. Correct. And we made sure to speak to our neighbors. I can imagine they received the notice and had some concerns, but we spoke with them and defrayed any of those issues. And as you just mentioned, 11.53 is the number that is the result of the calculation under this old section 12.7 bylaw 7625. I say old because it is the prior North York bylaw. The city has decided not to carry forward this concept of measurement into the new bylaw 569/2013. And I submit that it is an archaic type of measurement. It is no longer being carried forward. And I would also like the committee to consider that any decisions that are made with respect to the bylaw, will have little to no precedential value, as I understand that this particular bylaw will be defunct in a matter of time. It is in the latter stages of being phased out. That being said, I certainly understand that the committee has a decision before it today to review and approve or not the bylaws before the variances before it. So I would like to, if you could please scroll down to the next page after this visual. Thank you. So this is 51 North Park Drive. Again, we are at 66 North Park Drive. As you can see, this is a beautiful home. It has a flat roof and it did receive a height variance under the same bylaw 7625. The city planning report states that the requested variance is not consistent with the prevailing physical character of the neighborhood. However, I will point you to this visual and the subsequent ones that follow, and I would say that this is consistent. Actually, they're all beautiful homes with flat roofs.
Right, Ms. Salvatore, can I just ask you, do you know what that is measured at?
I do not have that handy.
You're at 11.53. I will point out, because I read the part of the planning letter that sort of supports you, but I'll read the next part where they say that it was as a result of the shallow pitch of the proposed flat roof, the roof portion of the proposed dwelling is much larger and broader and exceeds the scale of development. So that what they're saying, lack of slope on the roof squares the upper portion and presents a larger massing of the overall built form. Would you agree with that statement?
Just not a big picture.
Sorry. I think my internet has an issue.
That's okay. It just says, so they're saying because you're squaring it off, it's a larger massing, and that and they pointed out, which you just pointed out, that it exceeds any previous approvals in the area and is out of context, and then you're showing me this one, the 51 North Park. So.
Yep, and we actually mentioned this too. We spoke to Tamer Chowdhury, who is the city planner who wrote that report. And he actually acknowledged that this was, yes, indeed a flat roof. And, one of the subsequent ones that I'll show you, he also acknowledged that they did not even look at that one and they kind of missed it in their review. So, I mean, I'm focusing on the flat roof nature of these other homes. And I think we're if you look at our design, I think it's a beautiful, I think it's more, we've improved it, quite frankly. I think it is classic and more elegant than we previously were approved at. And so, I just wanted to point out some other examples of where the variance was granted, and also other examples where, the roots are very flat, including our next door neighbor that has a beautiful home as well at 68. If you scroll one down, you'll see 68 North Park Drive.
What's that? 68. Okay.
Yeah, this is our immediate next door neighbor.
Okay. So, and they're not opposed. There's no opposition.
No.
And actually, we'll move over
No.
now. Councillor Nunziata is actually
Sure.
in favor and feels, I believe, that this design is preferable. Well, we'll hear from her. So let's hear from the councillor, and then we'll see. In the meantime, does the committee members have any questions for Mrs. Salvatore before we move on to the councillor? Okay, Councillor Nunziata, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm here speaking today in favor of the application to build this new detached home.
Okay.
And as it was mentioned, the applicant is here today due to a mistake made by the city. The committee approved variances for this application on January 16, 2020, but when the applicant applied for a building permit, it was identified that certain required variances were overlooked by the zoning examiner.
Correct.
So they were told that they had to reapply to the Committee of Adjustment. So due to this oversight, the applicant was required to apply for a new committee hearing. And the applicant has revised their proposal in the meantime to include a flat roof. And I understand that the design of the flat roof has triggered a new variance for building height. However, I believe that this variance is minor in nature and in keeping with the aesthetic of several nearby homes. So I also share the support from nearby neighbors who have indicated that this new house would be aesthetically pleasing addition to the neighborhood. So for all these reasons, I ask that you approve the application to the members of the committee. And thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So you correctly summarized that. You're aware that planning department does not agree with you, and the staff member that wrote the report felt that because of the flat roof, it's too much massing. So you would, in this case, disagree with the planning department, correct? You feel that this flat roof design is a preferable design or an acceptable design?
Yes, I do. I don't agree with the planning department on their determination.
Yeah, and in terms of the request for a refund, I believe that is not within our authority. I believe the request has to be made to Michael Mizzi for that.
That's been forwarded to him.
Okay,
and
so
he-
that's underway, but it's not something that we can agree to. And again, in this case, in addition to, and I agree that's been a long delay and that's a costly matter for the applicant, that they have actually, on the one hand, they took the opportunity to make some changes, which in the long run, I think they're going to be happier with, provided the committee approves it as you're asking us to do. So there's that. If they don't get their refund for their second application fee, at least they know that they did make some changes that, in addition, because of the delay, they were able to revisit that. So thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee members, so I don't know if we have any follow-up questions or remaining questions for the applicant, or are we ready for a motion?
Just a quick question of the applicant.
Hi, I'm here.
Hi. Yeah. Variance number 1 regarding the length. That was one of the variances which was overlooked by zoning plan examiner. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And is that basically a result of that rear porch or that area in the back?
No.
Oh, is that the building proper?
Yes, it is the building proper, and we have made no change to the length.
And yet they overlooked it. Okay, I was surprised about that. That's my only question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a motion if no one else has
Well,
questions.
just to hang on, that was a very good point, because it's a 3-meter difference, but it was just missed. It wasn't occasioned because someone forgot to count the porch or an uncovered porch or a covered porch. It was just missed. Is that correct? That's
Correct.
my understanding. Okay.
That's my understanding. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Danny. You ready for a motion?
I'd like to say, first of all, that it's unfortunate that the applicant had to come back, but on the other hand, there is an improvement to the roof line. I actually like the roof line, and even though some of the measurements may seem large, when you compare them, because of the large scale of the site, I don't think they're going to be that noticeable. So I'd like to make a motion for approval of all the variances before us today. Find them minor in nature.
Okay, is there anything else? There's no other conditions, no
Well,
urban
There's forestry.
forestry? Ravine?
we have forestry conditions in a September 22nd memo from them. And then in a September 29th memo from them, we don't have any conditions.
No, I don't see any conditions.
See ravines.
I think that's the other way around. So the September 22nd is from Ravine, where they don't have conditions. The consolidated memo from forestry does recommend
have
refusal,
conditions 1 and
which
2.
means, or sorry, conditions 1 and 2, not a refusal.
So I would propose, I'll second it with a friendly amendment to add urban forestry conditions 1 and 2 to Mr. Bellissimo's motion.
Okay. Friendly amendment accepted by Mr. Bellissimo. Okay, all in favor? Unanimous approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Salvatore. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate your time
Okay, have a
today.
great day. Enjoy your new house. Item
Thank
number
you. Take care.
35. Okay, item number 35. It's our last application. Is 8 Martin Grove Road. And A, B, and C, it's an application for a severance to sever the property into 2 undersized residential lots. And the accompanying minor variance applications, Part B and C, to build new detached dwellings with detached garages on each of the 2 lots as severed. We have a revised agenda page indicating that the floor space index is 0.58, not 0.6 being requested. On Part C, sorry, Part B, Part C is not changed. That's at 0.6. And we have our typical location map survey, draft R plan. We have
They're
plans
both
for the 2
actually
parts. We have a tree inventory, covering letter, arborist report, supporting materials, planning report, and engineering services on typical standard conditions requested on a consent application, as well as 5 letters of support. And on this application, we have Andrew Palumbo, the agent, and the architect available to answer questions. No one in opposition.
Now, Mr. Chair, the revision of 0.58 for the FSI is for both B and C.
Oh, it is for C? Because I didn't see it for Part C.
It's labeled as revised agenda page Part 2.
So that changes for both parts. Okay, Mr. Palumbo, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Andrew Palumbo, I'm an associate with MHBC Planning, here to speak on 8 Martin Grove. Firstly, in your agenda package, you would have received a consent and minor variance justification letter that I have prepared, along with supplemental visual information provided by the client's architect as well. Those go into extensive detail on an outline of the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and it goes into great detail on the proposal itself. If it's okay with the committee, I'd like to focus the discussion on the presentation on the issues. There's a city planning staff report identified issues basically with only 2 of the variances for building length and building depth. They're interrelated, they're basically the same. So I'd like to focus the discussion on that and go from there to see if the committee has any questions, assuming that the package has already been reviewed, and just go from there.
Okay, so they're looking to modify variance number 3 and refuse variance number 4, being the,
that is correct.
the length and the depth. So if you can, focus on that. I see you have your neighbors in support, so that's a good thing.
Yes, there was a conscious, so just to give a quick history, back in March, City Planning actually issued a deferral report before this even got a chance to go to committee. So obviously providing a chance to work through some of the issues that they had advised on. Two of them were, again, building length and depth, and they also had an issue with the front door and garage entrance alignment. So while we did make concessions and we made revisions to, again, the original building length was 21.55 meters.
Yep.
That was reduced to what's before the committee today at 20.43. And there was also an adjustment to the front door garage alignment. That was, the front door entrance was brought forward by 2.36 meters. Despite that, again, looking at the immediate context, there are examples of other dwellings on the street of Martin Grove whereby there is a bump out from the front garage to the front door, but we wanted to work with planning as much as possible. So we made that revision as well. And if you look at the most current deferral staff report that was issued for today's hearing, they don't advise of any issues with the proposed consent. They have no issues with the FSI, which is, again, from 0.5 to 0.58. That's the variance that's required. The only remaining issues they do have are with the building length and the depth. And unfortunately, this report, in my opinion, is a little bit short-sighted because all it really does, it flags two approved variances at 28 and 32 Martin Grove, noting that they were approved at a variance of 18.3 meters or less. However, this report, unlike other reports I've seen from planning and for similar applications, did not really take a detailed look at the immediate context and what actually exists on the ground today, nor did it take into consideration the broader context of this neighborhood, whereby there's usually an in-depth numerical property by property analysis. All it really says is this number seems to essentially alludes to the fact that the building length number is still too big and doesn't meet the prevailing character of the neighborhood. And what the materials that I have prepared and submitted for this hearing, I have tried to portray my opinion into this committee that I'm of the opposite opinion, and I take a bit more of a detailed look as to the immediate and broader context. And I'll start by looking at the immediate context of the subject property. You look to the south, there is an existing 3-story low-rise apartment right to the south. There's an existing bungalow to the north and a church parking lot associated with Our Lady of Peace Church directly across from the subject site. And obviously, as you go north on Martin Grove, there is a clear mix, a very obvious mix of the older bungalows that still remain on the properties, as well as some rebuilds that are clearly obvious of the reinvestment that has gone on in this neighborhood. One thing I also did want to point out, particularly as I was doing my research for this hearing and looking at previous precedent decisions, and interestingly enough, so 15 houses, and this is included in my planning justification letter in both the text and the appendix. Yep. If you look at 15 houses north and east of the subject lands, there was a previous approval for 85 Mervyn Avenue in 2017 by this committee for a building length variance of 20.4 meters, which is essentially exactly what we're applying for today. It's 20.43 meters to be exact. This is only 15 houses north and east of the subject site. And I will note that not only was there no negative staff report issued at the time for a property in such close proximity, but it interestingly enough was the same city planner that was assigned to that file that was assigned to 8 Martin Grove. So it begs the question as to why the properties in such close conjunction are being treated so differently. The one thing I want to now focus on is with respect to the actual building length variance itself, and what we tried to convey to planning since the item was deferred, but they still are of the opinion that it doesn't meet prevailing character. When you look at impacts of a planning nature that result of this variance, I'd like to just go through a couple of things that should be taken into consideration when looking at what's actually being proposed on the ground. Firstly, there's already an existing on Martin Grove, at 16 Martin Grove, there's an existing dwelling with a building length of 20.8 meters. This is based on approximate measurement from aerial photography, but that would make this particular lot, this dwelling, the largest on this stretch of Martin Grove. So it's not uncommon for there to be longer building dwellings and shorter dwellings in this neighborhood. And again, I walked through the neighborhood yesterday in preparation for this hearing. There's a clear, and that's the purpose of the broader context figures and the immediate figures that were included with both the planning justification letter and the visual materials, is to show that there is a substantial amount of building length variation between adjacent properties, where some buildings are longer and others are shorter. We examined a lot of properties in preparation for the hearing.
Mr. Palumbo, sorry. You're already at 6 minutes, notwithstanding you talk really fast like I do. You're at 6 minutes, but this is important. So just a question for you. These other examples where you're telling us about depth and length, were those existing lots or were those lots that were also subject to consent and a severance?
Oh, these were this is existing lots that were just measured using aerial photography.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if community planning figuring that they're maybe not putting a different performance standard on the fact that you're creating substandard lots to start with, which is sort of a privilege, not a right, and then to push the envelope. But I just wanted to clarify if we're talking apples or oranges, but these are perhaps not undersized lots that you're giving us examples where there is more of a depth and length.
That is correct.
Okay. So anyway, we have your submissions, and if you could just maybe give you another minute to wrap up and highlight, and then we'll just see if anyone has any questions for you.
Yeah, and just to quickly wrap up, so as a result of severing the two lots, the resulting built form essentially results in variances only a modest increase to the FSI. There are no additional requirements to increase the setbacks on any sides of the house. The rear setback is not increased. The side yard setbacks don't get any closer to the adjacent properties. There's no variance required to the front yard, which basically suggests that as a result of creating the two new dwellings on each proposed lot, there is an attempt to work within the existing footprints and to be compliant with the zoning from at least that standpoint. And this is why the additional floor area to make more functional livable space, and again, the 20.43 meters only applies to the ground floor of the proposed dwellings. The second story is 18.79. So again, recessed a little further back to not create as much of a massing impact on the neighbors. So as a result of the two new created dwellings, that's my opinion, is that's what should be considered, and the impacts of a planning nature have been minimized from that standpoint. And that's why it meets the four tests of the Planning Act.
Okay. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Palumbo before we go on to there's just the architect. We don't have anyone else here with concerns. And we do have supporting letters from 4 residents. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Palumbo? And I see when this matter was first up in March, they wanted you to make changes, and I guess you did make changes. Doing the benefit of COVID from back in March. So you said what the changes, you did bring it closer. You took it from 0.6 to 0.58, and you did reduce the depth and length. But they were asking.
And this still makes the internal floor area workable and functional because again, these are thinner lots. And in considering the building length variance that's being requested, it's not really blowing the GFA out of the water, and that's why it's sort of appropriate to add back of house, as I've mentioned in my planning justification letter, as opposed to anywhere else on the property.
Yeah, I guess there's a good point. You're at 0.58. They're accepting 0.58. You got to put it somewhere.
Exactly.
Either in height or in well, not in height, but you're not doing a story. But you got to put it somewhere. If they're accepting the floor space index.
And that's why going backwards seems to make the most sense because it doesn't trigger a rear yard variance. There's still ample amenity space and sufficient spacing between adjacent neighbors, which again, we have letters of support. We made sure we went out beforehand before we even submitted to make sure there were no issues that we had to address, especially with respect to anything like privacy or whatever the case may be.
One thing that's interesting here, I'm just checking to see maybe it's not the case. You don't have side yard setbacks.
That's correct.
So that speaks volumes in terms of even between the two new homes, there's no setback issue.
That is correct.
It's typically
so we're working with. Yes, exactly.
Developers come here and they say, in the internal one, we're selling it to different people, and they'll have to just, as opposed to dealing with a third-party neighbor that already exists. You're not asking for any setbacks either to the external lots or between the two new lots that you're building. Correct?
That is correct, and that is my opinion why this additional GFA on the rear is appropriate from that standpoint, and also considering that the second story doesn't even go the full 20.43 meters that we're requesting on the ground floor.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Palumbo? Or are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll table a 2-part motion. First, with respect to the consent, I find the lot sizes proposed, frontages and depths to be compatible with the immediate context and recommend approval of the consent subject to the standard conditions. With respect to the variances, I find them to be in keeping with the 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I move approval of the variances subject to urban forestry conditions 2 and 3 and conditions set out by the Engineering and Construction Services Department.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We have a seconder for Mr. Taylor's motions. Sophia Ruddick, all in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Palumbo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, so it's now 10 to 4 and we are adjourned.
All right.
Oh. Alrighty. Yeah, you're erasing it, right? Yeah. The Wi-Fi?